Hi everybody, welcome back. Practically Social, episode 9. Tonight we're going to continue our series on cognitive behavioral therapy, and I'd like to talk about the CBT Iceberg with you. The CBT Iceberg isn't something that I came up with on my own. You can find lots of examples of it on the internet, though I did kind of put my own spin on it, so I'll share some of that with you on this episode. Please, if you would, hit subscribe down there below and the little bell for notifications. The channel is supported currently by over 30 subscribers, so I really appreciate all the help and support that they've given me. I'm going to put a little meter up here so that you can see how many subscribers we have on an ongoing basis. Once we hit 100 subscribers, we can do some live broadcasts, and I'll probably start having some guests on at that point. Also, I think it's important to note that not everyone on YouTube is making money. You actually don't make money on YouTube or are even eligible to make money on YouTube until you hit 1,000 subscribers. So have no fear. I'm doing all of this at no cost to you, and I hope that you find it helpful as well. So let's go ahead and talk about the CBT Iceberg. I'm going to put the infographic up right now so that you can see a little bit better version of it, because the way that I draw it isn't very good all the time. I'm not very good at drawing, so just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Bear with me as I go through my unpracticed drawing here. I'm not an artist. That's why I'm a social worker. So the first thing that you'll see on the CBT pyramid there at the bottom is belief. Moving up from belief, we have thought, then we have feelings, and at the top of the iceberg, we have actions or behaviors. Off to the side, you'll see some activating events, and then you'll see an arrow on the right side pointing up. So what I'll do now is go ahead and go into that and explain what I mean by some of these. I'm going to draw here on my board. As I said, bear in mind with me as I'm not great at drawing. This is our iceberg here. On the very bottom of the iceberg, we have the belief level. In CBT, one of the things that we're trying to discover most about ourselves is where do we get our beliefs from? Then on top of that, we have thoughts, which I also like to call belief light. Next in the diagram here, we have feelings. And here's our water line. Now, are we an iceberg ourselves? Not quite. This is just a diagram that goes through how CBT helps us analyze our own thoughts, our own beliefs, our own feelings and actions, and also something that we call self-talk, which I mentioned in the first video in this series, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Basics. Thoughts turn into self-talk. Our feelings, according to the model, are based upon our thoughts. So at the very bottom here we have belief, thoughts, feelings, and at the top we have actions or behaviors. These are the things that people can see us do. Feelings actually break the surface here, because when we vocalize them or we write them out, people can see them here or hear about them. But a lot of other times, they're beneath the surface and we don't talk about them. So where am I going with this? Let's talk about what we see on the top first, actions. Actions are the things that we do every day. However, I also described how actions can be inaction, such as when we're depressed. So if I isolate a lot and I'm not taking any action, or I lay in my bed all day, that's still considered an action. What's underneath the action are feelings. So if I'm lying in bed all day and I'm isolating, not wanting to talk to anyone, I'm probably feeling depressed underneath that, or sad. Maybe I feel hopelessness or despair, these kinds of things. The thought that could have driven that might be something such as, things are always going to be this way and I think they're really terrible. And under that may be a belief that I would believe something along the lines of, things in my life are very uncomfortable and no one ever likes me. Or I may believe things like, I'm not good enough. Now this is just an example for depression. We could also use these examples for things like anxiety. Okay, so it's important to understand that the examples I'm using aren't the only examples. Whatever my clients are experiencing, that's what I'm usually talking with them about. And we use this model here to say, okay, let's start with what's going on right now, and we'll work our way down through feelings, thoughts, and hopefully down to someone's belief system. And we'll also get into some self-talk. On the other side of self-talk, we have something called affirmations. When I do CBT with people, we try to turn some of this negative self-talk into positive self-talk in the form of affirmations, in order to help change some of the feelings and hopefully change some of the actions that other people can see. So most of the actions that are related to mental health disorders, depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, addictions, these types of things, are based on what I think is at the bottom of the CBT iceberg here. So in essence, what therapy for me and for the people that I work with is a process of getting to the bottom of this iceberg. So when things come in, I believe that our activating events that happen in our lives, or triggers as some people call them, go straight to our old database in our brain. Our beliefs are formed when we're children, and they're often unchallenged. We don't have the executive functioning in our brain to think critically about the types of beliefs that are put in when we're children. So as those go unchallenged all the way up through the age of 7 or so, when we lose our kind of magical thinking, these are pretty firmly held. So a lot of people don't know that this is existing here in their mind. It's already sort of sitting back there. So what comes out of that? Well, things from our childhood from a long time ago. Our belief system influences our thoughts and the way that we think in certain situations. So once the thoughts are evident, we have what's called the self-talk. So we're telling ourselves things based on these beliefs, and it creates a feeling, which in turn turns into action, or, as I was mentioning previously, inaction. So when people come to therapy and they want to change some of these things here, and they want to change some of these feelings, what we're actually doing is sort of landing on this iceberg first, as sort of a rescue team, if you will, to assist and help my clients get down to the bottom here. Down at the bottom, in the deepest, darkest part of the water, where the largest mass of the iceberg is, our belief system. So it's not that we don't live in the now, or we aren't trying to always live in the past. We're not trying to live in the future either. But it is important in cognitive behavioral therapy to work through some of these things and to understand them better, so that then we can understand why things are turning out the way they are in our lives. And I call that a function check. So when I say, hey, I've been working with you for a while, you've discovered some of these belief systems you have about yourself, Maybe a lot of them are negative. Maybe they came from negative events in your history, like trauma or parents or other school children, these kinds of things, kind of planted those ideas in there and they become the operating system or the programming. So when the programming is negative, the thoughts are negative, the feelings are negative, and a lot of times we end up with things like depression or anxiety, among other disorders. Evaluating these types of things can say, do you want to keep these negative belief systems that you have, and how willing are you to change them? We do that by doing things like diagramming and thought logging and journaling and working through it in therapy, which I'll cover in next week's video about how to use some of these tools for thought logging and to consider the CBT Iceberg when we're doing this. So generally speaking, when I get my clients down to their belief system and then they see how it's influencing their thoughts, keep in mind this is a theory. It's not the only way to do therapy, but I've found it very useful for most people that I'm working with, and they seem to find it practical and easy as well. Once they found out what their thoughts are, then it seems to make sense to them why they feel the way they do, and then in turn why they do a lot of the things that they do in terms of behaviors. And that can include things like isolating or staying up late or losing sleep or getting involved in addictions or other kinds of maladaptive coping skills, we call them. So once we go through this process, then we say, okay, now you've got a good idea of where all this is coming from. Perhaps we can change some of these beliefs, which will in turn hopefully change some of your self-talk, and we can do affirmations to help build some of that positive self-talk, which should then create better feelings, and then in turn, hopefully some healthy habits in our lifestyles. So that's what I call the CBT iceberg. And like I said, the process of therapy with me, though it may seem scary to a lot of people who are going through it, is I'm there to guide you through this process. I'm not there to lead you. I do ask you to take that deep dive to the deepest, darkest part of the water, but I'm there with you, and some of the discoveries that we make could truly be life-changing. So stay tuned for next week's video where I'll go into some of the thought logging as I described, and we'll continue to use this CBT model and the CBT iceberg to help you delve deeper into some of the things that bother you and their solutions. Thanks for joining me.